Jackson had survived 3 alien invasions, 2 diplomatic incidents, and 1 accidental declaration of war that he'd somehow talked his way out of. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for this moment. The Vel-Sharan throne room stretched before him like a cathedral of bioluminescent crystal, pulsing with colors that didn't exist in Earth's spectrum. Queen Zarathix stood at the observation platform, her 7-foot frame draped in what appeared to be living metal, her skin a deep azure that shifted to violet under the alien sun's light. Her species was known throughout the galaxy as the apex predators, warriors who had conquered 40 systems before humanity had even discovered fire. Jackson was there as Earth's trade ambassador, a position he'd accepted because the pay was astronomical and because his sister Lisa had dared him. "You won't last a week without insulting someone," she'd said. He'd been determined to prove her wrong. He was currently on day 6. "Ambassador Jackson," Queen Zarathix's voice resonated like a musical instrument. "Your proposal for the mining rights is amusing." Jackson straightened his formal jacket, the one with all the medals he'd earned for not getting humanity killed. "Your Majesty, I assure you the terms are more than fair. Humanity offers advanced terraforming technology in exchange for—" The floor suddenly shook. Not violently, but enough to make Jackson stumble forward, his arms windmilling for balance. The Vel-Sharan guards barely moved, their multiple eyes tracking him with what he could only describe as amusement. And then it happened. As Jackson lurched forward to catch himself, his hand shot out and made contact with something firm yet yielding. Time seemed to slow. His brain registered the texture, definitely biological, definitely not a wall. And then his eyes traveled upward to meet the Queen's face. Her expression had transformed from regal amusement to something between shock and volcanic fury. The entire court went silent. Even the bioluminescent crystals seemed to dim. "How dare you touch my ass, human?" The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Jackson's hand was still extended, frozen in the aftermath of his transgression. Around the throne room, he could hear weapons being drawn, the distinctive hum of plasma rifles charging. Jackson's voice cracked. He cleared his throat, his mind racing through every diplomatic protocol he'd ever learned. "Your Majesty, I most sincerely apologize. The tremor caused me to lose balance and—" Silence. Queen Zarathix descended from the platform, each step deliberate, predatory. Her tail, the very appendage Jackson had inadvertently grabbed, swished behind her with barely contained rage. In Vel-Sharan culture, such contact is reserved only for declared combat challenges or mating rituals. Jackson felt the blood drain from his face. "Oh, God. Oh, no. Your Majesty, I assure you, neither was my intention." "Ambassador," her voice dropped to a dangerous purr, "you have committed a grave offense. By the laws of my people, I am within my rights to have you executed. Slowly." This was it. This was how humanity's newest alliance would crumble. Not through war. Not through politics, but because Jackson couldn't keep his balance during an earthquake. Lisa would never let him live this down, if he lived at all. But then Jackson noticed something. The Queen's primary eyes were indeed furious, but her secondary eyes, the smaller ones that Vel-Sharans used for reading micro-expressions, held a different emotion. Curiosity? Amusement? He decided to gamble. It's what humans did best. "Your Majesty," Jackson straightened to his full height, which was still considerably shorter than hers. "I understand I've violated your customs, but let me ask you this. When was the last time anyone in this court dared to touch you at all?" The guards' weapons hummed louder. Someone gasped. Queen Zarathix's tail went completely still. "Explain yourself, human. Before I decide, your death is too merciful." Jackson's heart hammered, but he pressed on. "You're the queen of the apex predators, conqueror of 40 systems. Everyone in this room fears you, respects you, worships you even. But touch you? Treat you like an actual person instead of a divine entity? He gestured around the vast chamber. Look at them. They keep 3 meters of distance at all times. When you walk, they part like water. When you speak, they don't dare interrupt. That is proper respect, the Queen said, but her voice had lost some of its edge. That's isolation, Jackson countered. Your Majesty, I've read the Velsharan historical texts. Before your species became the dominant military power, your people thrived on physical connection, touch-based communication, pack bonding. He took a careful breath. When did you last experience that? Not as a queen, but as a person? The silence that followed was deafening. Queen Zarathix's multiple eyes studied him with an intensity that made Jackson feel like he was being dissected on a molecular level. Then, impossibly, she laughed. It started as a low rumble and built into something that shook the crystals in the walls. You humans, she said, still chuckling, are either the bravest or the most foolish species I've encountered. Perhaps both. She gestured, and the guards lowered their weapons. Ambassador Jackson, you've done something no one has dared in decades. You've surprised me, and you've spoken a truth I've long denied. She extended her hand, a very human gesture she must have learned for diplomatic purposes. Your mining rights are approved, and perhaps your people could teach mine something about remembering who we were before we became conquerors. Jackson shook her hand, relief flooding through him. Thank you, Your Majesty. As he left the throne room, his communicator buzzed. A message from Lisa. Day 6. Told you you'd screw up. How bad? Jackson smiled and typed back. Nearly started a war. Ended up making history. Standard Tuesday. Because that's what humans did. They stumbled, they improvised, and somehow they survived.